So welcome to the second annual DipLab Demo Day. I'm really excited to have everybody here, whether you're a colleague from across the Department of State, a student or faculty or other member of the campus community at one of our partner universities, or somebody else entirely who's just trying to figure out what the heck Diplomacy Lab is and get a taste of some of the student presentations that we've been able to generate through this partnership. I'm going to start us off by passing the mic to the one and only Tomas Debass, the Managing Director for the Office of Global Partnerships, for a few opening words. Tomas, take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Great.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. Before I start, I want to give out a shout out to Brian. I've done a lot of these virtual events. Any of them that Brian does, I get excited. I feel like I'm going on a big stage because his energy is amazing. So thank you, BG, for that. So good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. The whole virtual world is now, the time zones have been blurred a lot. So not knowing where you are tuning in, I want to wish you, whatever time frame you're in, a good morning, a good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us. It is awesome and great to reconvene all of you in our second annual DipLab Demo Day. I was hoping last year that this year we would meet in person. Unfortunately, the variants have not been so kind to us, and we were not able to meet in person, but still this amazing virtual forum still gives us the opportunity to bring so many of us together to witness the power of what partnerships mean in this incredible partnership. I know some of you have heard me talking about our office, the Office of Global Partnerships, and there are also, I see a lot of new faces and new names. And so if you allow me, just briefly, I'm going to talk a little bit about our office, the Office of Global Partnerships. I have the honor of leading this amazing office whose job is essentially to engage in collaboration with the private sector to advance our essentially foreign policy. The Office of Global Partnerships, which actually very well known in the building as GP, was launched in 2008. We help build and facilitate partnerships that harness the technology, markets, and resources of universities, private sector companies, startups, foundations, diaspora groups, essentially any non-state actors who can work with us to do our what we do best. And I'll be honest with you, I have the best gig in the department, not only for being able to work with brilliant and passionate civil service like Brian and foreign service officers and contractors around the world, but I get also to collaborate with folks like you who might not be in the government, but who have amazing resources and know-how to help us do what we do. We work across, obviously, sectors to advance our foreign policy goals by not only providing tools, partnership tools, and resources for the rest of the department, but we also serve as a catalyst to bring in resources from the private sector to achieve our shared goals. Partnerships, when people hear about the word partnerships, they sound much more of a kumbaya. Let's just get together and be inclusive and all that. But they are more than that. They are essentially a critical tool in our diplomacy and development efforts around the world. If we are not utilizing the skills, resources, talent, and innovation that exists all around the world, we're essentially limiting ourselves and nothing beyond that. In the partnerships I just described, how we do them, one of the most iconic or the most amazing partnerships that illustrates that power is none other than the Diplomacy Lab partnership. And our friends here who've been working with us, the universities who've worked with us in the past, can attest to that, how powerful it is in a sense when the Department of State and these universities come together, the magic that happens, the kind of the academic, the intelligence, the knowledge sharing that happens, that magic is just simply awesome. And with Diplomacy Lab, we obviously, tap into the talent and the vast talent that is out there, and what we call core sourcing, crowdsourcing in this case, core sourcing research that we need from teams, from students and faculty around all these network of universities that we have. It also gives us the opportunity to engage a more diverse set of ideas and voices in the work of foreign policy. And we also hope that the students get to see a sneak preview of what it means to work at the U.S. Department of State, because the type of questions we're asking, and my colleagues around the world asking, are not just necessarily academic questions. They're actually real world issues that they're facing. So if you get to working on these issues, then you have kind of a glimpse of what it means to be a foreign service officer, or what it means to be a civil service officer, either on Washington or around the world. So it also gives us an amazing platform to recruit and inspire the next generation of diplomats. Today's presentations are obviously a great overview of what makes these partnerships incredible. First, we will hear from students at the University of Arizona who collaborated on a project about climate resilience, which is a high priority for us. We work very closely with special presidential envoy for climate, John Kerry. A lot our office does. And this climate resilience work with our Bureau of East Asia and Pacific Affairs. The University of Arizona is one of our newest partners, so it is awesome and exciting to see in their first year that they get to work and they get to bring multiple disciplines and classes to carry out this research. So I get this feeling that this might be their first, but these guys gonna come and just dominate the diplomacy lab. The next one is Virginia Tech, one of our oldest partners, my alma mater, and I'm not biased to them. We're all equal here. But they will showcase their work with the Bureau of Conflict and Stabilization Operations, CSO, their project which focuses on China's Belt Road Initiative, which is born out of a previous collaborations between the university and CSO. So it's really actually exciting to see also a partnership cycle that, the gift that keeps on giving, this collaborations that keeps on kind of maturing. So it's great to see CSO and VT working together. Finally, we will get to see the Kennesaw State University's work with the Bureau of Overseas Building Operations. We're always trying to demonstrate that here at the Department of State, there is something for everyone. We're not just talking about foreign policy and those kind of things. There are also incredible things, architectural issues, building issues that we face. So to see collaborations between the states, our own real estate and architectural division, and collaborate through this within the DipLab network is a great example of the diversification that we have under this network. So that's essentially what you're about to kind of witness. It's going to be an awesome event. And before we get going, I just want to give kudos and gratitude to all of you who make not just this day possible, but the entire partnership possible. Because without you are the soul of what DipLab is about. We're just the maestros. We don't, at least our office, and I know Brian is a musician, but I'm not. And we're just the maestro. We don't play any instruments, but you guys are the one that brings the symphony together. So I want to thank you. And the other one is I want to thank my colleagues who are tuning in from around the world and from Washington. And it's all supply and demand. If you don't demand these questions, this would not be possible. So thank you for coming back again and again, because you've seen how awesome these students and faculty are. So for your continued engagement, I want to thank you. For our Diplomacy Lab coordinators and faculty leads who makes these efforts, who makes this tissue tighter, thank you very much for doing that. Continue to recruit more for us. And we can't be more appreciative than you, because you guys are the kind of the tissue that keeps us going. And obviously the students. I've already mentioned this, but you are literally the future of foreign policy. You are literally the future of the Department of State or any other foreign policy, foreign affairs activities around the world. America's leadership could be maintained if folks like you, these students like you, could continue to be engaging with us, and hopefully you can even join the ranks of what it means to work at the U.S. Department of State. So on that, I want to thank you not only in advance, but I want to welcome you in advance. And I know some of you will get this bug, the Kool-Aid of foreign policy, and you'll drink that and you'll hopefully can join us on that. So I think I've said too much. Again, it is awesome to see all of you. I'm looking forward to hear these amazing projects. So on that note, I'm going to pass the microphone back to Brian.
Thank you so much, Tomas. Really appreciate that. I'm going to keep it really brief. I can't top what Tomas just said. So I just want to give a quick overview for those of you who are tuning in because you saw something about Diplomacy Lab either on Twitter or in a department notice or whatever it is. Diplomacy Lab is a partnership where the State Department comes up with research topics. And as you'll see today, these topics vary, wildly. We cover everything. The State Department provides research topics, and faculty-led student teams at partner universities undertake that research over the course of a semester. It's kind of at their discretion how they take on this research, whether it's through an existing course, an independent study project, a capstone, whatever. There's an immense amount of flexibility in how this research is carried out. But what it does is it provides real-world problems for our partners to solve. It exposes students of all academic backgrounds to the work of foreign policy. As Tomas mentioned, it's not one thing. We don't want one kind of person to end up at the State Department. We want scientists, artists, engineers, everybody. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of challenges to overcome, and we need the full picture to do that. And so every semester we run this program, and what you're going to see now are a few projects that were carried out during the fall 2021 semester. If you're a State Department officer on the call right now who has not participated in a Diplomacy Lab program before, I encourage you to submit a project proposal. As Tomas noted, without the demand, it doesn't matter what the supply is. So we need projects from you to keep this program running. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Ashley, I don't know if you've got the slides up, but if you could put up that second slide that's in the presentation, that would be awesome. But you can always reach out to me. My email address will be on the slide that is about to appear before you now, gerhartbr@state.gov. Look at that. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about submitting a project, or if you are somebody tuning in from a university that's not already in our network. We are always looking for new partners. We are always looking to expand the scope of this partnership to make sure that students all across the country can participate in this incredible program. So shoot me an email, gerhartbr@state.gov. I'd be happy to set up a time to speak with you about this program and how you can get involved. I'm going to leave it there because I'm too excited to see these presentations from our student teams. So what we're going to do first is throw it over to our one of our newest partners, the University of Arizona. And they're going to be presenting on enhancing Mekong River region food, water, and energy security in a changing climate. This was a collaboration with EAP, the Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs. We'll hear from the State Department officer who proposed and oversaw this project following the presentation. But a few quick notes. If you are presenting, feel free to bring yourself on camera. We'll have Ashley controlling this slideshow. So just say slide or next when you want to go to the next one. If you're in the chat and you have questions for the presenters, what we'll do is we'll collect those questions. My colleague Alex Nelson will then select one or two to ask our presenters immediately following their presentation. But with that, I have said enough. So I'm going to throw it over to Shelley, Jen, Fatima, and Sam from the University of Arizona. Take it away.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. I'm going to go with an all-time zone encompassing good day. My name is Shelley Litton. I'm pursuing a master's degree in systems engineering here at the University of Arizona, and I'll be introducing our Diplomacy Lab project, enhancing Mekong River region food, water, and energy security in a changing climate. Today, you'll also hear from my classmates, Jen, Fatima, and Sam. Slide, please. So Diplomacy Lab is a public-private partnership in which university students address an issue of interest for the U.S. Department of State and prepare recommendations for resolution. Here at the University of Arizona, we had two separate classes working together on our Diplomacy Lab project. Dr. Vafai and Dr. Lancey's class on science diplomacy, and Dr. Garfin's class on climate adaptation. One aspect of the Diplomacy Lab that was particularly special for us was the chance to integrate perspectives from extremely diverse academic areas. Our team comprised undergraduate, master's, and PhD students in hydrology, water policy, urban planning, engineering, astronomy, chemistry, neuroscience, natural resources, and we were able to work together seamlessly and integrate these knowledge sets for a project with real-world impact. Slide. Diplomacy deals with enhancing international relationships, and science diplomacy centers these relationships around scientific challenges and solutions. This is important because many shared global problems are scientific in nature and can be addressed with collaborative solutions. Scientists, engineers, and public health professionals are key players in science diplomacy because regardless of nationality, we speak the same language, often recognize the same problems, and seek the same solutions. For our diplomacy lab, we investigated how science can help resolve pressures of climate change in the lower Mekong region. We studied impending challenges relating to food, water, and energy resources, and devised recommendations to the State Department for solutions in partnership with the Mekong River Basin nations, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Thailand, Vietnam, and Myanmar. Climate change is amplifying existing stressors in the lower Mekong today. Rains are increasingly variable, temperatures and sea levels are rising, and the water levels of the Mekong River are decreasing, which threatens agriculture, fishing, and hydropower. We hope to encourage development and economic connectivity around improving reliability of these shared resources. Slide. In approaching this challenge, we divided into 3 teams, each addressing one of the 3 focus areas, food, water, and energy. The teams researched their focus areas and devised policy recommendations based on case studies. We produced 3 top-line, high-priority, high-confidence, and feasible solutions for each focus area, and we also recommended ways of communicating these solutions to invested groups and encouraging collaboration to enact our recommended strategies. Slide. Today, our team will present the main issues with each focus area, our objectives, and our recommendations. Finally, we'll discuss strategies for disseminating this information to relevant stakeholders. Slide.
Thank you, Shelley. Hi, everyone. I'm Fatima. So the first section that we will be looking today is the food nexus, and we identified 3 issues related to the food nexus in the Mekong region. Slide. The first challenge we ran into the lack of systematic measurements and data availability to assess the situation in this region. Slide. As you all see in this table, agricultural emissions range from 20% to 35% of total emissions and is the second largest source of greenhouse gas in the Mekong region. And agriculture industry consumes around 90% of available water resource in the region, which adds to the environmental degradation. Slide. We also found out that small farmers are more vulnerable and more affected by climate change, which affect the food security in the region. The Mekong region has a significant percentage of population experiencing moderate to severe food insecurity and undernourishment compared to the other regions of the world. Additionally, food production both on land and in the Mekong River is threatened by climate change. Slide. This led us to our objective of improving land use, agriculture, smallholder farmer sustainability, and food security. The UN Sustainable Development Goals were used to prioritize our recommendations as they are well-recognized global standards for development. With the focus on UN SDGs 13, 2, and 5, the food nexus recommendations were focused. Slide. Therefore, our top-line recommendation is to devise a comprehensive climate mitigation strategy for agriculture, forestry, land use, and other land use by formulating a robust mitigation plan. The main components of this mitigation plan will be having targets and deadlines for indicators to assess the climate change and patterns. Secondly, to go with low emission rice farming, as the Mekong region, the major crop is rice. Third, reduce the enteric fermentation from livestock, which has a major emission source of methane, which is a greenhouse gas. And finally, to have sustainable land management policies, which will help us to achieve our goal. With that, I would forward the presentation to Jen. Slide.
Awesome. Thank you, Fatima. My name is Jen, and I'll be speaking with you about the research that we did on the water nexus. Slide. In starting to look at the research that we wanted to do, we first started with climate change. We found that climate change is decreasing the river flows in the Mekong River due to increased dam building, as well as increases in drought recently, specifically seen in 2019 in this box. Slide. We then looked at groundwater supply in the region. We found that groundwater over extraction, seen in purple/pink on the left map, is directly correlated to land subsidence, seen in the darker colors on the right, specifically in the Mekong Delta. Next slide. We then looked at water quality issues in the Mekong region. We found that there's a lot of naturally occurring arsenic in the rocks in the region, and that increases water contamination with arsenic. And we also found that there was a lot of agricultural runoff that was contaminating the stream flow in the region as well. Next. Therefore, we decided that our main objective should be to identify the issues that are most concerning in terms of water quality and supply within the region and provide solutions based on that. The 4 recommendations that we had tied into UN SDGs 5, 6, 14, and 13. Next. Our main recommendation, however, was to promote eco-friendly farming practices to reduce pesticides and organic pollutants. So we wanted to increase biofertilizer use and decrease pesticide use to ultimately decrease water contamination due to agricultural runoff, and then increase groundwater and water quality monitoring to update the data sets that currently exist in the region and to have a more comprehensive look at what those levels and water quality concerns might be moving on in the future. So ultimately, this recommendation would increase water quality in the region, and that would have profound effects on the amount of potable water that could be used in agriculture, as well as rural and urban supplies, directly tying us to the UN SDGs 6 and 14. Next. And with that, I'd like to introduce Sam to talk about the energy nexus. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. My name is Sam, and I will be talking about energy use in the Mekong region. So next, please. One of the main issues that we identified with energy had to do with increasing energy demand. Energy demand is expected to increase 60% in the region by 2040, requiring a lot more power production to come online in the coming years. Next. This is intimately tied with the issue of low energy efficiency, which is seen across all sectors of the economy. This is of particular note because it is one of the key elements driving that overall increase in energy demand. Next. 2 other issues we identified had to do with climate change. The first being an over-reliance on hydropower and fossil fuels. Together, they make up the vast majority of energy supply in the region, and both are expected to increase in the coming years. Coupled with the fact that there's low climate resiliency built into the energy infrastructure, and this means that the region is not prepared to deal with the effects of climate change. Next. So thinking about this, we got to our main objective for energy, which was to increase grid resilience while decreasing reliance on fossil fuels and hydropower. We think this is a particularly good objective because it also ties into UN SDGs 7, 11, and 13. From this, we then get our main recommendation, which is to fund microgrants for businesses and individuals to upgrade to more energy efficient appliances. Next. The basic idea here is to have a program that will give money directly to people to spend on buying more efficient appliances for themselves and their businesses. We wanted to particularly focus this program on AC and other cooling devices, as together they make up a large share of energy use in building spaces. In fact, a recent report found that by doubling the efficiency of the average AC unit in the region, this could be translated to an up to 70% reduction in overall energy demand. And finally, we wanted to target this program towards vulnerable communities and individuals, such as women and small children. Next. So in addition to looking at these three main areas, we also looked at how to best disseminate this information and our recommendations throughout the region. Next. In particular, we wanted to focus this on reaching women, youth, and individual communities of interest. Some ways we came up for doing this were utilizing local partners, such as agricultural co-ops, religious groups, or schools and universities to reach those specific communities of interest. We also recommended utilizing traditional media, such as newspapers and magazines, as well as radio programs that can reach people in their local languages. Next. But the crux of our dissemination campaign rests on social media. We believe social media is best used to educate people, find people where they are, especially our target audiences, and provide opportunities to partner with local experts. On the right here, you can see an example of one of our recommended social media campaigns, which we call our #MekongandMe campaign. The basic idea here is to ask people to think about and share what the Mekong River means to them and how they interact with it in their daily lives. Next. And so with that, I want to take a moment to acknowledge all the wonderful people we worked with at the State Department, especially Dr. Scott Wicker, and of course, our three professors here at the University of Arizona, Professor Lancey, Vafai, and Garfin. And with that, we're happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
That was fantastic. What a way to kick off the demo day. I want to ask if there are any questions that you can drop into the chat. Look at that. We got one from Kurt. Thank you so much. Alex, would you mind reading this aloud to our presenters?
Sure, Brian. How did your team come to recommend eco-friendly farming practices as a response to water quantity and quality issues? Your background slides mentioned other dimensions, e.g. arsenic, dams, etc. So what was the evidence that led you to your recommendation? Interviews with farmers in the Mekong, something else?
Yeah, I can take that. And then Fatima, if you want to chime in at any point, feel free to. So in our kind of research, we found that water quality along the Mekong region was very variable, and arsenic concentrations were managed and like denoted in that kind of lower Mekong Delta, but the agricultural runoff wasn't really, I guess, quantified as well. And so we wanted to kind of push our recommendation towards that, as well as just kind of increasing data in the region because there wasn't a lot of data. And so by doing eco-friendly farming practices, you're able to clean up the water systems as well as kind of build that food resilience and touch on a few of the other UN SDGs instead of just focusing in on one.
Yeah, a small note to add in. When we did the research, so there were like research articles where they showed like the farmers are adding more pesticides and fertilizers than they should. So especially in Vietnam and Myanmar. So that's when we realized, so that's going to be a huge problem in the future where it's going to be like the water quality going to be degraded. So then we came up with this recommendation. Thank you for the question.
And we're already somehow a little behind schedule. I think that's my fault for talking too much at the beginning, but if we can answer this question really quick, I think it's a really interesting one from Miguel Rodriguez. Why would you want to decrease hydropower? Isn't hydropower clean energy?
So I'll take this one. So this is actually a really good question because I think this is a misconception a lot of us have. So yes, hydropower is clean in the sense that it doesn't produce carbon emission, but hydropower is not a sustainable energy source because it affects the way that water flows through the river. It can damage fish populations and cause sedimentation issues, which can affect the overall health and well-being of the river. So even though it doesn't produce carbon, it's an energy source we want to move away from because it causes other long-term climate effects.
Awesome, succinct and brilliant. Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much to all of you from University of Arizona. That was a fantastic presentation. Really great. I want to now bring on the folks behind this topic. Dr. Scott Wicker from the Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs, as well as Professors Garfin and Lanzi from the University of Arizona. I think, all right, well, we'll jump into it. My first question is for you, Professor Lanzi. This is the first time that the University of Arizona has taken on any sort of diplomacy lab project. What was it about this topic that you thought would be something worth digging into with your students?
Our climate work and at a forefront in research on climate. And in addition, it was really one of the really strong projects that dealt with had a science component. And we saw the students in our class developing skills where they could be that next generation of diplomats, but need to understand that their work can fit into the realm of diplomacy, right? Scientists don't normally recognize this. So we saw both the climate project as being really as something that we could dig into, and we had students who would benefit from it from the other side. Whoops.
We're not hearing you, Brian.
You're muted, Brian.
Thank you. Look, it's been 2 years of this and I'm still on. Can you hear me? I was just going to say that hard science component comes from somewhere, and that's from you, Dr. Scott Wicker. You're an academic yourself. What made you think like this is a topic that we could really use some research from partners in the Diplomacy Lab network?
I get this from our collaborative teamwork within the EAP MLA office, from the wonderful leadership that we have with clearly setting forth the regional strategy and also having us at the table when we're looking at the policy dialogues, the policy dialogues 1.5, also with training us to make sure that we're listening to our collaborators in the Mekong U.S. partnership and the Mekong region, what they want and what they need. So adhering to our SMART strategic goals, our short goals and long-term goals, listening and aligning to the regional plan and looking at the regional impact of our strategy. This kind of gave us the insight of allowing me to take that academic approach as the part of the Jefferson Science Fellow and a representative of Kentucky State University to really work with our University of Arizona collaborators. So I really, really enjoyed this process because as Kevin denoted, it gave the opportunity for us to utilize the students' talent. I should call them collaborators now because they're trained now to be foreign service officers and civil service officers, which we really promote them to apply for these positions, especially PhD and master's and undergraduate students, to help with the scientific diplomacy that we're embarking on. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wicker. Professor Garfin, this last one's for you. One of the most compelling parts of this project, I think, to folks like me is the combination of disciplines that went into bringing this to life. When Professor Lanzi came to you, what made this something you wanted to jump into? Was this something that you thought you've been looking for your students, these kinds of opportunities, or was it just, I guess I'll go along with them this time?
Yeah, well, so Professor Lanzi is just an all-star civil engineer. He's got such a deep understanding of water infrastructure policy and working with stakeholders to make positive change. So I knew that I'd be able to connect in a very positive way with him. In my climate adaptation class, each year we have students from the university's Masters in Development Practice program. And I expected that they would gravitate towards this project, but they didn't. And so I was really pleasantly surprised that we had one student who worked on climate changes, another who was trained as a lawyer, but who's seeking a master's degree in water policy, and a third who's a landscape urban landscape professional, and she was a returned Peace Corps volunteer. And that combined with the super variety of disciplines from Dr. Lancy and Dr. Lafay's class really made it an exciting project to work.
Thank you so much to the three of you for your work in shepherding this. And again, a huge thanks to the students brought this to life. This was an incredible project and we were really excited to see it. With that, we're going to move on to the next presenters. Virginia Tech is one of our oldest partners in the program, one of the true blues, as I call them, folks who we can always rely on to help bring this work to life. Ashley, if you could go ahead and share your screen again and tee up the Virginia Tech presentation. I'm really excited to introduce the students of Virginia Tech who will be talking about Chinese debt trap diplomacy. Take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to start and introduce the project. Hello, everyone. My name's Hannah. Our Diplomacy Lab project in partnership with CSO looked at the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, in context to debt trap diplomacy and clientelism. The goal of the project was to determine if among various Belt and Road clientele states that there was a pattern of exploitation that Beijing followed when targeting and creating relations with various states through debt trap diplomacy. To achieve this goal, the team was broken down into 4 states that are currently tied to China via the BRI, those being Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Pakistan, as well as looking specifically at Chinese diplomatic efforts. Each of the state teams themselves are broken down into diplomatic, military, and economic veins of interaction between China and these states, and the team leads will be speaking on each of what they found in context to Chinese debt trap diplomacy movement in tangent with the BRI. So they can go from there. Next slide.
Hi guys, my name is Vince and I was the team lead for Djibouti. China and Djibouti have had ties since 1979. However, those ties ramped up when China decided to participate in its first naval battle task outside of the Chinese region, combating Somali piracy in 2008. With China's military might on display, Djibouti wanted to establish better ties with China, and this is evidenced by, over the next decade, President Gale of Djibouti and Premier Xi Jinping met about every 2 years. Militarily, the Doralay multipurpose port and the PLA support base accompanying it are China's symbol of military strength both in Africa and Djibouti, as this base can harbor almost any vessel in the Chinese fleet and can be used to downsize vessels if China wanted to head up towards the Red Sea. Economically, the Djibouti International Free Trade Zone is seen as a way of changing Djibouti into the Dubai of East Africa, with the Djiboutian government and the Djiboutian people believing that the transformative power of ports will bring in wealth and create better jobs. Unfortunately, that hasn't held up too well, as the jobs created by this initiative, which is pictured on screen, have been staffed by Chinese workers. Additionally, with the Addis Ababa Railway, Djibouti and Ethiopia are chained at the hip, with the railway allowing for better extraction of resources to head towards Djibouti and potentially overseas back to China. Next.
Hi everyone, I'm Elena and I'm going to be discussing Eritrea. Since Eritrea gained their independence in 1993, China has begun to influence almost every aspect of this coastal African country. Diplomatically, China has created exchange programs for Eritrean students to study abroad in China and for the Eritrean government officials to learn directly from the Chinese government. The Eritrean students are enrolled in Confucius Institutes to learn Mandarin and specific information requested by the Chinese government. This direct communication helps China by employing their ideals and propaganda across regions, no matter the cost to Eritrea. Militarily, Eritrea is located on a key waterway, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which joins the Sea of Aden to the Red Sea. This location is key to controlling trade and other countries' militaries throughout this area. China is also supplying Eritrea with military weapons that are comparable to the United States. The United States Predator drone cost approximately $5 million US, but holds restrictions on the missions that can be carried out due to our human rights standards. China is supplying a similar weapon with a price tag of $1 million US and has absolutely no restrictions on what missions can be carried out. Eritrea currently possesses older Russian and Soviet Union era weapons, and China is looking to combat this. Economically, China is heavily investing in infrastructure in Eritrea, mainly roads, railways, and communication systems. China is also looking to build up Red Sea ports and collect natural resources located in Eritrea, like natural gas, gold, oil, zinc, and other. However, China is not employing the Eritreans to provide them with work in order to grow their economy. China is bringing in their own citizens to complete these tasks. Next slide.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus, and I was fortunate enough to be the Ethiopia team lead. So diplomatically, we see that they wanted to disseminate Mandarin and Chinese cultural learning throughout the younger population of Ethiopia, and they did this in a couple ways. Most notably was through the use of Confucius Institutes inside of the country itself, but also the hosting of Ethiopian students inside of China at various universities. In 2019, the numbers were about 162. Now, this is pre-pandemic. We don't have the numbers for what was going on during the pandemic. And also, they seem that they wanted to maintain ties with the Ethiopian government, despite the different changes that have occurred since their diplomatic relationship began in the 1970s. And finally, they also host a lot of journalists from Ethiopia and have bought up a couple of African journalist publications. Economically speaking, we see that they want to continue their investments in the Ethiopia-Djibouti Railway, and they want to continue to be a player in the industrial parks. So currently they're invested in 9 out of 13 of them. And for the most part, with the ones that they're invested in, we see that Chinese nationals are heading the management positions and Ethiopians are doing the general labor of the camps. So we also are of the camps of the parks. And we also see that it's pretty easy to extract the resources from East Africa out of the railway and to the port in Djibouti. And we also see that they want to extend it south eventually into Kenya. Finally, we see that they want to conglomerate Ethiopian agribusinesses and use FDI to build up Ethiopia's heavy industry. They've done this through a couple ways, a couple of different trade agreements, such as the Agreement on Trade, Economic and Technical Cooperation, as well as the Growth and Transformation Plan that Ethiopia instituted in 2016. And militarily, we see that they're trying to walk a pretty fine line of supporting the Ethiopian federal government in their civil war without becoming overly involved. Now, we see that Ethiopia's had a couple of governmental changes since the 70s, and it seems like they're trying to ensure that they're never going to be on the wrong side of that. So like other countries, they have supplied pretty inexpensive drones to them, and as well as training some military officers in their country. And that's all I have. Thank you. Next.
Howdy, my name's Jacob. I was heading the research on the Pakistani side of things for this project. So since the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, Pakistan has been one of China's largest advocates, as well as trading partners, both regionally and internationally. Their trade relationship, especially military transactions, has ebbed and flowed with increasing tensions between Pakistan and India, but the partnership reached a new level of cooperation with the announcement of the Chinese-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, around the time of the announcement of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, back in 2013. CPEC is considered to be the flagship program for the BRI and is currently the largest source of foreign direct investment into Pakistan. The projects under CPEC are focused on upgrading Pakistani infrastructure as well as energy sectors. And all the projects are completely funded or constructed by Chinese state-owned enterprises. This massive inflow of Chinese infrastructure projects in Pakistan is very costly to maintain and upkeep and has led to a dangerous cycle known as circular debt, which has been a more recent problem hindering current and future CPEC projects. Diplomatically and politically, the two states have a strong, friendly relationship with numerous meetings and forums between the officials of each state. However, this facet of their relationship is focused on a steady stream of Chinese news and media into Pakistan. As some of the other groups have already mentioned, the Chinese Confucius Institutes plays a big role and dispersing Mandarin, but more importantly, Chinese perspective on international politics. There's also a large number of Pakistani students currently studying in Chinese institutes, fully funded by the Chinese government. Militarily, Pakistan is heavily reliant on imported Chinese military technologies. These imports range from small arms to anti-aircraft missiles. China has also provided Pakistan with several types of submarines and planes, and has more recently delivered the most technologically advanced Chinese exported frigate to Pakistan, with 3 more on the way. All of these factors point to the idea that China is trying to build up Pakistan militarily and economically in order to almost encircle India as pushes for regional hegemony intensify. Next.
It didn't work. I'm Robert Hodges. I'm actually filling in for Katie Pullman, who did this research. She graduated in December, is actually traveling now in a job interview. What Katie was able to do was, through her language skills of speaking Mandarin, monitor television, radio broadcasts, and look at print media to see how China promotes itself in all of these BRI efforts and debt trap diplomacy. And really what she found was China is really championing itself as the developing leader and partner for the global South. They are very clear that they are not colonial in their actions, such as what the Americans and the European nations have done historically. And so really they promote themselves saying they want to help and not conquer and occupy. And this is an ongoing thing that China does both within their nation and the target nation for their expansion. So yes, China right now, they do what they do, and they promote it all as we are the champion of the global South. We are helping those who have been neglected by the American European allies, and we are there to help. And so they do, and plus the 1,000 palace policy they have, where they'll build leaders, big giant palaces and presidential buildings. So this is how China effectively sells its programs to its people and to those around the nations. So thank you all for your time. Real quick as I wrap up, I want to thank Luke Wilson, Ian Reese, Colin Goldblack, Max Gallant, Keith Feller, Sebastian Bukvich, Omar Hayder, Alexis Lovelace, and then Katie Pullman as well, who are all researchers on this program, but were not able to present their part of the work. And I thank you all for your time and the opportunity for this project.
Thank you so much to all the presenters, and Professor Hodges, I appreciate you shouting out the rest of your group. As I mentioned before, Virginia Tech has been an incredible partner throughout the lifespan of this project. I think Chris Price is online as well. Chris is our Diplomacy Lab coordinator at Virginia Tech. Thank you so much for continuing to help me match great projects with great teams. I don't see any questions in the chat, and so what I'm going to do is go straight into a quick Q&A with Robert and James Stewart, one of my colleagues at the Department of State in CSO. Now, James and Robert, this grew out of previous collaborations between CSO and Virginia Tech. And Robert, you mentioned in academia, there's always the asking the next question. Is there any way, where did this collaboration begin, and what made it something you wanted to continue to dig into?
So for me, this actually began over 4 years ago when we did a project with CSO, and I explained to Brian before, there were some breakdowns of communication, the reconnection, and it was basically on a thematic process of disengagement, disarmament, and reintegration, and looking how to stabilize different conflict areas. And from that, there was a question after the original project, and one of the things we talked about was the use of foreign terrorist organization labeling of how effective is the United States, and is there a Goldilocks zone. And so, you know, we did some other projects with CSO, and then a couple years ago, we did one with James and CSO about the possibility of restabilizing Afghanistan after the conflict. From that, the next question was, we found a lot of heavy influence by Pakistan and the ISI towards assisting the Taliban. So get them out of Pakistan or Afghanistan toward restabilization. Then when we researched the ISI Afghanistan connection, we noticed a heavily influenced by China. And it was like, okay, so what is China doing, maybe helping destabilize the Kashmir region and keep things a little dicey in that region? And then we did a presentation, and the question was, okay, if China's doing this BRI, is there a pattern, and can we blunt those efforts? And so it's what we find with our projects is not just a final solution, but okay, yes, that next question, what else is being influencing this? And then can we dig deeper into that? Can we dig deeper into that? And so, yes, with James, I'll tell you what made me want to keep working is James, especially, and CSO has been absolutely wonderful in student engagement. You know, we were able to do presentations pre-COVID. The experience the students have going to Department of State and CSO's office is just, to be honest, it's priceless, and it's something that I can't replicate.
And Robert, I'm sure it's just as good to tune into a WebEx link, you know, for all your students as it is to go to the State Department, right, y'all? James, thank you so much. It's great to hear about that level of engagement. This is obviously a topic that every day grows more. It's a hotter topic every single day. What made this something that seemed like, hey, this is a good place to bring in some additional insight from the academic sector?
Yes, well, thank you. And thank you, Robert, the complex tapestry of our history. It's great. But yeah, thank you to Hannah, Robert, and the team in Virginia Tech for a great job. And thank you, Brian, Avery, and the team at the Office of Global Partnerships, too. So to your question, so the Bureau of Conflict Stabilization Operations works to kind of anticipate, prevent, and respond to conflict worldwide, right? So that involves developing a nuanced understanding of the local, national, international conflict dynamics, which includes relevant actors that may have the means, motivation to influence the conflict or who may play a spoiler role in the mitigation of a conflict, right? And in an increasing number of countries around the world, one of those primary actors is the PRC. So really we looked to expand our knowledge base, look to Virginia Tech to provide some great research into understanding the PRC's actions through kind of that lens of strategic competition in countries that present conflict stabilization problems or fragility risks. And I think that is a smart partnership, and you know, I look forward to continuing it.
I really appreciate it. You know, I would love to keep talking to both of you all day, but want to make sure we can get to our next presenters. Again, to the Virginia Tech team, thank you so much. This is phenomenal work. No spoilers, but already getting private messages in the chat from other State Department colleagues who say, I want to know more about this. I want more. So I will be happy to connect you with them so you can keep sharing this work. This is phenomenal. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Please do. We'd be happy to touch base with anyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. Thank you, Professor Hodges. Okay, so for our final presentation today, Ashley, if you could bring back up the shared screen, I'm going to go over to my colleagues at Kennesaw State University. Kennesaw State is fun because we have now run the complete gamut for types of projects that this university has taken on behalf of the Department of State. And as Tomas alluded to in his remarks, I'm really excited about this collaboration with OBO because I think it's one of the easiest things to pull as like, hey, I didn't know the State Department did that. I didn't know the State Department had a real estate office and architects on payroll who are you know, managing a huge amount of really complex buildings worldwide. So it's really exciting to see a collaboration between designers and architects and this bureau. Without any further ado, I would love to pass it over to the students from Kennesaw State University who brought this project to life. I believe it started with the name GIS Site Selection and Site Analysis, and now has the much snappier title, Simplifying Embassy Site Acquisitions with Geospatial Analysis. So Kennesaw State, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? So my name is McKenna Chambers, and with me here today are Cheyenne Belton and Grace Shirley. And my team and I wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity to share our project. We were really excited. So the title of our research is Simplifying Embassy Site Acquisitions. This was a research project given to us in the fall of 2021 by the State Department Office of Overseas Business Operations. So the research helps determine the possibilities of a building, in this case, an embassy, on the site in a foreign country and whether it is financially and practically viable. Next slide, please. So we are 5 undergraduate students from Kennesaw State University who were interested in seeing a practical use of geographic information systems, or GIS, in the real world. GIS is a system that creates, manages, analyzes, and maps all types of data. It connects data to a map, it integrates location data with all types of descriptive information. Our team leader, Professor Uli Ingram, she did an amazing job at guiding us. And in the end, we are all, very happy with what happened. We all got to know each other. We experienced various struggles. Our own research was limited at times by language barriers, for example. We had setbacks in our individual analysis with our program's model builder, but we overcame them together. And we had multiple areas of research. We had various model analyses. We had multiple maps for different cities over 11 countries with their viable sites ranked most viable to least viable. And we even created web apps to make the data easier to understand for those without a geospatial background. And we're still determined to use GIS in whatever our future field of study may be. So thanks for that. Next slide, please. So, as we know, embassies allow governments to cultivate political alliances, maintain cultural and trade relationships, and facilitate travel. So there we started with a list of parameters that we believe were the most important factors to consider in our site. Overall, these parameters include the accessibility of the site, the safety of the site, and of course, the security and convenience of the site to its users. At a micro scale, we started looking at the proximity of the area's downtown location and how easy the parcel or site will be to acquire. So, for example, could we buy a single parcel spanning 2 acres or more, or will we have to buy 36 smaller parcels, merge them, and build on that land? These were factors that we had to take into consideration, and we had to offer them to the OBO as options. A primary concern was the vulnerability of the parcel. We know they couldn't be in floodplains or tsunami zones, so we had to find these areas so that we could actually erase them from our final analysis. And obviously, we were very concerned about the convenience and safety of not only the foreign dignitaries, but also the workers within the embassy. They needed to be close to appropriate hotels and other amenities, such as private schools for their children if they were there. But they couldn't be close to gun ranges or large arenas because we didn't want them being threatened. Areas around gun ranges typically have a higher percentage of lead in the air, and arenas are prime targets for terrorist attacks. So these are the key parameters that we based our initial research on for our analysis. And with that, I'll let Cheyenne explain our analysis.
Hey everyone, can y'all hear me? Cool. Okay, my name is Cheyenne and I'm going to talk about data collection and analysis. For data collection, we use ArcGIS Living Atlas, which is an online collection of spatial data available for download through ArcGIS Pro. We also use regional and national spatial data hubs. These were hosted by the country, city, or region of interest and often maintain the most accurate and updated information. Lastly, when shapefiles or list of addresses weren't available, we collected addresses from Google and converted them to usable point data through a process called geocoding. Next slide, please. After collecting all desired data, we began our analysis using a tool in ArcGIS Pro called Model Builder. The blue ovals on the left side were our desired criteria, while the final green oval was our overlay for each city. Each overlay became our new focus area, which narrowed the search for individual parcels. Now I'll turn it over to Grace. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Cheyenne. My name is Grace Shirley. So next up, we thought we'd show a couple of examples of these overlay areas that we generated. We have Auckland, New Zealand and Wellington, New Zealand as our just examples, but on the left under each one, you'll see the magenta polygon that represents the overlay area. That's the output of that model that Cheyenne showed you on the last slide. And to the right, you can see those magenta areas within the context of the city boundary as a whole. So we just wanted to kind of demonstrate how if you're typically looking at these maps for the first time, maybe you're looking at the entire city, and then after inputting these models, we were able to narrow it down to just these little tiny ideal areas. Next slide, please. So while we were all able to identify these target overlay areas with the models that we built, ideally we would find individual parcels there that then met the rest of the criteria, but that wasn't always the case. So with that in mind, we wanted to make sure that we delivered the results of our work in a way that would make it useful to the OBO in the future. So we created these online applications that include a search bar, so you can put in an address of a place of interest. There's measurement tools so that you can measure how far away a point of interest is from any other point of interest. And then there's also the ability to add further data or manipulate current data or just update data as it changes over time. We try to use the most recent data when we created this, but a couple years down the road, if a new set comes out, there is the ability to update it. And next slide, please. And with that, I'd just like to acknowledge our team, Professor Ingram, who was our team leader. She was wonderful. She helped us through every trial and tribulation along the way. We have McKenna, who you met. She is our architecture major. The rest of us are geospatial science majors with concentrations from human environmental to information systems to land surveying. We're all really grateful for this opportunity. We worked remarkably well together for 5 people who didn't know each other very well. And we're really proud of what we've come up with and really grateful for this opportunity to present today. So thank you so much.
That's incredible. Fantastic work, Kennesaw. Really, really loved this project. And beautiful design work on the presentation too. Guess it's not fair to put a bunch of designers in the same thing as everybody else, but thank you so much. We have a few questions that are actually more logistical questions, but I'm actually gonna, Grace, I have you on the mic. Were you meeting in person for this project, or was this done completely virtual, or some hybrid of the two?
Completely virtual.
Completely virtual.
Yes.
Amazing things can happen in a virtual setting. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, now, we got one question from Kurt. Kurt says, all the cities in New Zealand are great, but did you select them as they were data rich? Were you able to try your process with data poor locations to stress test it?
I can actually answer that because I did the New Zealand cities. We did cities in several different countries, but I started with one city in New Zealand. And given that it is so small, a lot of the data sets were on a national scale rather than a city by city scale. So after presenting the first one, which was, I believe, Auckland, the OBO had mentioned that Christchurch was a priority. So since I already had most of the data for it, I took Christchurch. And then Wellington was the only other one on the list. So I just took that one too, because it's a small country, so everything's there already. So that's how New Zealand came into play so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sorry, if I can expand on that question a little bit. We did not pick data-rich cities. We actually just picked the city and tried to research first. So we have a lot of cities that we actually could not use because the data wasn't available, the data was in another language that we couldn't translate, or the data was not even downloaded. The data was collected in a way that we didn't have access to it. So we just presented the ones to the OBO that we had availability to.
Awesome. And one more question from our good friend, Michael Hamburger at Indiana University Bloomington, another partner in the Diplomacy Lab Network. He asks one question that might be front and center for New Zealand and him as a seismologist. To what degree did you consider vulnerability to natural disasters as a criterion? Thank you, Michael.
Quite a bit. There's a lot that can happen in New Zealand, as I'm sure you know. We had tsunami zones in there. We had earthquake zones. We had floodplains. We had just everything we were able to find, which is coincidentally quite a lot. So yes, that came into play a lot.
That's awesome. Well, one more huge thank you to all of you at Kennesaw for presenting. I want to turn it over now to the folks behind the project, my colleague in OBO, Calvin Klessis, and Professor Ingram at Kennesaw State University. Thank you both so much. I'm going to start here with Professor Ingram. When you see a program menu from the State Department, did you already know to look that, yes, there's going to be something architecture related? Was it, how did this collaboration end up happening?
So I've seen the menus, that they're called menus, the list of projects for a couple of years. I've had coworkers who have done these projects, and they were more political science and conflict management. So, but what happens is I get the email from Cheryl, who's our lead at Kennesaw, and I search on the word GIS.
All right, so you knew to look. And Calvin, we've already heard me say this over and over about, how unique it is to be able to expose students to OBO. With a project like this, is recruiting and exposing students to the work of the Department of State in your mind, or are you really just saying like, hey, we need these answers, who can we reach out to?
Thanks, Brian. So really it's a little bit of both, I would say. On the one hand, OBO is really a unique organization. We think of it as almost a microcosm for the entire federal government, but within the M family of Department of State, because we have architects, we have mechanical engineers, we have cultural heritage specialists, and then of course planners and GIS staff as well. So being able to expose the students to that and let them know that there are State Department careers that may not be so traditional is great, but also just being able to leverage the excellent work that's done by these students to help expand our own geospatial operations. And just I'll plug for CFA, Center for Analytics, their geostate environment. That's where we're actually using for our GIS applications, and some of the student work has been uploaded to GeoState. So you all are able to view it there. Our department colleagues are, that is.
And Professor Ingram, was there anything that surprised you about this collaboration? Was there anything that was particularly noteworthy that you discovered in working with state and with your students on this project? Any experiences you can highlight for us?
So the most important thing about this is that it's an actual project, and we have a deliverable, we have a client. So in all of my courses, I teach from cartography to intro to advanced GIS, we have projects, but they're usually fictional. The students propose a fictional project and then they give it to me, and I'm the only one who sees it. So this is great. We give it to the OBO and they look at it and they give it to others, and hopefully at some point they will build an embassy at a site that we proposed. So I think the students' work ethic and responsibility increased so significantly because we delivered this and we worked toward a real project and a real goal. It made a humongous difference for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the real world component of this is one of the most incredible aspects of this. Actually, while I still have the presenters from Kennesaw on the mic, any of you going to go into a future at the State Department, or have you now learned that you want to stay far away from this work? Wow, the silence is overwhelming.
You hiring?
I would love to. I do plan on going into a geospatial related field. If the OBO is hiring, of course, I'll send my resume right over. But it was a very fun project. It really only enhanced my interest in it. So I can see myself doing that, yes.
That's awesome. Well, again, I just want to thank everyone so much for their work on this project. Ashley, if you can throw up that final slide with the website and my email address, or with whatever the final slide in the presentation is. I want to give a huge resounding thank you to all of the students who not only presented on this work, but had to go dig back into their brains for something that happened in a previous semester, for you to come back out, dust it off, and showcase your work for this audience was so appreciated by me. I'm sure the sentiment is echoed by my colleagues around the building and by your peers at other universities in our network. I want to do one more plug. If there are any universities on the line who are not already part of the Diplomacy Lab network, we are always looking to expand the reach of our network to get more incredible students and faculty involved in this amazing partnership. So please check out diplomacylab.org or state.gov/s/partnerships. You can also email me. I'll make sure that my email is in the chat. I'm always happy to talk about this program. I have nothing but effusive praise for everybody who's been involved, whether on the State Department side, for coming up with these incredible projects semester after semester. It's worth noting again that currently the project submission period for fall 2022 is now open. So if you've got ideas for projects, please submit them through GP SharePoint page. That's an internal site. So, if you need the link, reach out to me at gerhardbr@state.gov. And I'm happy to walk you through what it involves to carry out one of these projects. And again, to our partners on the line, that new project menu will be coming at the end of February. So again, Professor Ingram, start getting that Control F ready to go, find that GIS project. And to everyone else on the line, just thank you so much for tuning in. This has been really fantastic. It's always a real pleasure to get to showcase what the students in this network are able to accomplish through the power of partnership. So thank you to everyone, and I hope you have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, everybody.